This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, it's Patrick Reed from the Adamas Principle. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the Brexit special. I don't have a Union Jack t-shirt, and actually I was going to ask you to get your one. You know, you've got that Union Jack waistcoat.
Yeah.
You don't really let people, you haven't told many people, but I've seen it, you wear it a few times out. Why aren't you wearing it now?
Couldn't find it. Must be in the dry cleaner somewhere.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, let's get cracking. There's a lot going on in the week, but it's really revolves around Tuesday, and it's the vote in Parliament, and basically there's a lot at stake, and for me it's even more difficult to trade because of the uncertainty and the heightened risk. So if there's a Scottish referendum, there's a certain amount of risk attached, but in this instance there's so much more. There's at least 4 or 5 times the amount of risk as an election or a Scottish referendum or whatever. And the reason for that, in my eyes, is half the politicians don't know what they're doing. There's no plan involved. It was a plan cobbled together on the back of an envelope. The reasons why this came about was because Cameron wanted to galvanise his power base. He was expecting everyone to remain, right? That's, for a kickoff, that was the wrong thing to do. And obviously, now here we are. We're not very far away from March, and I want to just, sometimes it's good for, and I'm saying it for myself, sometimes it's good just to take a step back and go, look, do I really want to trade this? Because it's going to be very messy and very choppy, but all nerves will be calmed because I've got an expert with me tonight. That's right. Beat Noose Bomber in the house. Hello,
Hey,
Pete.
how are you? Good evening.
I'm very well. I mean, I guess, okay, quickly, if it's a no, knee-jerk cable off. But if you get on it, or euro a little bit off because it's looking weaker at the close from kind of inline CPI and from the US. So what I say is, if it's a no on the vote, cable off a bit, but don't hold it too long. I'll take your profit while you can. If it's a yes, you might get some relief, but I quite fancy fading it. If it's it does depend on the amount of votes either side as well, so that might be fun not to vote, to trade. But the other thing is, do you touch cable? Do you touch euro dollar? Do you touch euro sterling? I know you're a fan of euro sterling yourself for less volatile days, but what are your thoughts on all that, B?
To be honest, I mean, first of all, it's probably hard to actually see a yes happening on Tuesday. So the vote on the 15th, 7 p.m. it's scheduled, which probably there'll be some delays because I guess every MP that will be in the House will probably try to have a little speech. So, don't hold your breath. I mean, 7 p.m. is the official time. There's obviously a lot of potential for delays. So the core is really clear. It looks like a no, which I guess we have to be careful about how much sterling really sells off, because reality is everyone expects a firm no for the last 2 weeks or before Christmas. So reality is even the size of the no doesn't really matter anymore, because a no is a no, as simple as that. I think the reason why probably sterling is actually enjoying, actually staying beat despite the outlook is that sort of new angle that was injected on Friday, even though it not being an official view about shifting Article 50, delay Article 50. If I look at the sterling reaction, we had an initial rally on that news. Then people realized that's just a view from a few MPs and it's not official. So sterling came back down, but during the afternoon, it kept on grinding higher again. If you look at the euro, like we said, buy the rumor, sell the fact on the dollar. So euro obviously was probably a little bit the easier one to see to come off on Friday afternoon. But sterling come off. Euro sterling just kept on motoring lower, which is a very interesting move. So some people are clearly in the view that yes, it's going to be a no. It's not going to be a problem because the only way out of the deadlock is to actually extend Article 50. Why is that a fair option? The option is, according to ministers, they say that even actually, as funny as it sounds, even if it's a yes, they may have to extend Article 50 because apparently the time, because they've been so sort of incompetent in the last many months, the time to debate various angles of Brexit is not enough anymore until the deadline. So even they said, even if they work through half term, it would still not be enough to get everything debated by March 29. So that means even if they would vote yes, we might have an extension on Article 50. So that is a very, very viable option, and it's probably behind the sterling strength on Friday afternoon, especially if you look at euro sterling. A very powerful move down on Friday afternoon. And as I just said to you before we got live, it actually continues in the Wellington Open. Euro dollar just traded down to 40, 114.40, which takes euro sterling down somewhere to like, the low says 88.87. Whether that is the true low or not, I don't know. But it's another push. So it's almost a continuation of the moves you seen Friday night in New York. Now comes the big one. The big one is there's two things going on behind the scenes. One is they try to push Corbyn for an answer today, whether or not he's going to launch the no confidence vote.
Yeah.
He says he will. He obviously doesn't give a time because he doesn't want to give everything away. But he would actually have to do that, or potentially will do that on Wednesday. So if Theresa May loses the vote on Tuesday, we have to actually, from then on, we have to expect Corbyn or the Labour Party to launch a no confidence vote into the government. Now, that obviously has two sides. One is they could, in theory, take control of government, even without election. On the flip side is that the Tory MP said, and even the DUP said they would support Theresa May in a no confidence vote, even if they vote against the deal, but they would support her in, so she could limp on, which makes the whole situation even more terrible. But that's on a different sort of scale. But the risks, or let's say if people buy sterling on the back of the extension of Article 50, whether this be 3 months, 6 months, whatever it's going to be, it definitely gives a relief rally for sterling. Because the chance of getting a deal maybe in that period is maybe a valid point to think about.
Yeah.
The other risk is, which is some secret plot is being plotted with the Remainers MPs from the Tory party together with Burkhoff, the Speaker of the House, to sort of, the moment that May loses the deal, they actually seize power away from the sort of government to, whatever, maybe a pro Remain type of setup where they're going to try to come up with a plan B that is something like, stay in the custom union and so on and so on. So a watered down Brexit. So
right.
It's the problem. The risk why I just can't trade sterling right now is, yes, I see it's a valid point that actually there could be from 4 or 5 different options. A majority of options could actually point towards either no Brexit or a delayed Brexit, or a softer Brexit. So I fully understand where people coming from, but like we talked offline, there's a difference between whether you are a big asset manager with deep pockets, or you're an institutional trader with deep pockets, or if you trade retail. So, you know, for retail, it's just really toss a coin, because even if you're right at the end, if there's a knee jerk on the no vote on Tuesday night and sterling does sell off briefly, who knows how much? Big figure, 250 pip, we don't know. So you could get stopped out on that move, and half an hour later, sterling is like 2% higher.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have a risk management that is somewhere in the, you know, maximum 1% bracket, it's very hard to survive the swings that could follow Tuesday or Wednesday. The other is, so as we said, so a no vote on Tuesday may not see the same impact that it would have had prior to Christmas. Before Christmas, we didn't have this delay of Article 50 story, which we now see to have. Because now it's not just about, you know, now that the government can sell it as we need the time to debate all the topics. So it's not to do with not delivering Brexit, it's to do with, you know, administrative reasons rather than the actual, you know, try to steal the Brexit. The biggest risk I do see with a no confidence vote from Labour. You know, that even if the DUP votes in favour of the government, you actually need every Tory MP to vote. You know, that the numbers are very, very small. And you would still think that the Tory party doesn't want to lose power. So you would expect everyone to back Theresa May. But, you know, it's a mess. It's an embarrassing mess. And like we talked offline, the only reason or the only hope I have is that people start to realize how embarrassing it is for politics, for the UK, for the government. They just have to somehow get the act together. And so, in a way, it feels to me that the sting is maybe taken out a little bit from where I would have expected what would happen before Christmas. I think this whole Article 50 idea creates a little bit of comfort in the market. And you know, that is as well the only explanation if you look at the price. Cable at 128.5, you know, euro sterling at below 89 actually takes away from maybe the biggest mistake or the biggest, you know, risk for the UK. It's quite surprising. The other thing I would like to mention is that I think is what people still struggle to understand. If they vote no to Theresa May's deal, that is equal to no deal Brexit at that point. That's just what it is. You know, no matter what people say, that is the only deal. If the deal gets voted down, it means at that point in time, it's no deal Brexit. Now, Parliament says no one in Parliament or the majority in Parliament does not support the no deal Brexit. But here comes the next problem. The Parliament cannot say what they don't want. The Parliament has to actually say what they want. So that means that's where Plan B is coming in. Parliament has to create a Plan B. If they don't have a plan, it's going to be no deal Brexit on the 29th of March. As simple as that, because that's just the law. They either have to say we delay Article 50. They have to suddenly come out with, you know, some sort of a different type of Brexit and then go back to the EU, whether that's going to be Theresa May or a group of MPs. I don't know who is going to be the execution side if May loses the deal. So this amendment we've seen last week, the big discussed one, that Berkhoff may have sort of crossed the line between impartial or not.
Is that 3 days to come back for something, wasn't it?
So her, in the original plan was Theresa May has 21 days from the day when she loses the vote. So this is cut short to 3 days. What I do find very interesting and disturbing at the same time is that Theresa May apparently hasn't even said anything to her closest people in cabinet of what her plan B is. So some people say she doesn't have one, which is possible. I wouldn't surprise me at all.
Plan B, no deal. That's the plan B, which is a joke.
Yeah. So really, it's still let's say it's a big jungle where I think even people that are very familiar with the matter, so to speak, MPs, I think even when I listen to MPs talking, I start to sense that even for them it starts to become very complicated. But I think, as far as I understand, and I think that is true, so a no vote means no deal Brexit. Given it's not 29th of March yet, that is not yet a problem. So the no deal on Tuesday doesn't mean no deal. But what it does mean is the Parliament has to come up with something. They cannot just say we don't want no deal Brexit.
Yeah.
So the risk has always been, and if you remember, I think I wrote something a few months ago, the risk in Brexit has always been that we stumble into a no deal Brexit by accident. Not because we want to, but because we just somehow seem to be utterly too stupid to actually know what we want. And it's embarrassing. I was listening, there was a program on BBC where they went to Ireland to see how they've been preparing, because obviously the Irish economy is so closely linked to the United Kingdom that a no deal Brexit would really be a problem for the Irish economy. And you know what? From day one, when Britain voted to leave the EU in 2016, they started their preparation. They have like phone lines since 2 years where people can call in for businesses. What is this? What happened then? Blah, 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 blah. It's like they just organize from A to Z, It doesn't mean like they're not going to have any pain, but they know exactly what it means, where the problems will be. If A happens, then this happens. If B happens, then this happens. They know, right? And here is the United Kingdom that wanted to leave the EU and for 2 years hadn't had a plan. I remember David Davis going to his first meeting with Barnier. I think he has a leaflet with him with about 2 things to discuss. And
Barnier, I know. That was a great photo.
Barnier had a full dossier of.
You had all of his team there with full dossier, everything, and David Davis had a leaflet.
To be honest, the core mistake, as you said in the intro, was obviously Cameron. But the second mistake came from Theresa May or whoever decided to have a 2-step process. You have a withdrawal bill, and then follows the actual trade discussion. So this should always have been just one discussion. Why? Because the UK has a few trump cards up their sleeves for the actual trade discussion, right? Let's speak Germany. Let's speak German cars. Let's speak some of the other products where the UK is one of the main or the biggest buyers of certain European products. So, if you combine the 2 discussions, I'm sure the UK would have had a few better points to discuss. Then now what happened is the EU basically said, okay, this has to happen, A, B, C, D, E, and if it happens, then we are prepared to talk about a trade deal. So we are really with the back to the wall. It's not something we can correct. It happened. So, but that was just the biggest negotiation mistake ever, to have a 2-tier Brexit, a withdrawal and then a trade deal. It's insane. Because I'm sure if we are important to Europe. We are, in terms of the, just what Britain used to pay into the EU budget. As a whole, economically, we're important, right? Look about the city. I mean, the EU has already now made concessions where they said, oh yeah, in the derivatives sector, we're going to have access one more year. Why? Because the EU is not ready.
Yeah.
if every clearinghouse should suddenly change, I mean, Europe hasn't done anything for the last 20, 30 years. That's why London was the financial hub of Europe. So again, we could paint a very bleak picture, and a very bleak picture would be if Britain goes out without a deal. That means we have no transition period. So this is basically a cliff edge Brexit. 30th of March we're out, and that's it. So with all the scaremongering stuff, or let's say with the Brexiteers said, the scaremongering stuff is actually going to happen. We're going to have all the big queues in Dover. We're going to have all this delay of goods arriving in here. It's going to be a terrible mess. Whether it happens, I don't know. Maybe it happens in 6 months' time if they shift Article 50. So if I had to bet from all the wild scenarios we have, I'm probably closest to the extension of Article 50.
Yeah.
Because I just think the second referendum, I think neither side wants. The Brexiteers will cry foul about stealing Brexit. The Remainers, I think, sort of realize that Brexit is happening. And even if I just read today, the polls are still very narrow. People just don't know anymore, right? So, and then, okay, let's say Remain wins. And then a Brexiteer could say, you know what, let's have the final vote because best out of three. It just creates such a, yes, it's embarrassing that politics is gridlocked. And I have some sympathy for then people to argue, okay, if he can't decide, people have to decide. But you know what, I think politics has already been damaged in this process a lot. And if you bring it back to the people, I think politics just lost. So maybe the delay of Article 50 by 6 months or whatever they think is needed, try to fiddle with the whole thing at the same time as you prepare for it. Maybe that makes sense, but it's going to be volatile. But I definitely see, if you, from a risk reward point of view, I would almost have to say there's a bit more upside to sterling than downside right now.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
I'm surprised I'm saying this, but it's just how things go. What I'm not sure is how much, let's not forget, let's say the vote is at 7 with possible delays for, a few hours, who knows. So we're going to hit again let's say if you have like 3 hours delay, we're going to really nicely hit again the end of New York session, early Asia session, right? You know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
But that's like what we said. If you can sit through the pain, if something silly happens, I don't think it would be justified sterling to get nuked just on a no, because we basically already know that something is going to follow very quickly. Now the problem is, and again, that's from a timing perspective. So we have the no vote. That's probably it for that night. And if then Corbyn launches the no confidence vote on Wednesday, that could add more pressure on sterling, because at that point we do not really know if the Tories gonna or Theresa May is gonna survive that one. I think she will, but I have no idea how the market reacts. So my problem is I see the overall risk on the upside in sterling, but for those that have to manage risk tightly, it's very hard to survive the potential. We have like 2 potential moments for sterling to get hit. One is the actual no, and the second one is if Labour Party launches a no confidence vote. So both sterling will quickly try to dip. How much? Hard to tell. The market will be a little bit loose. There will be very little liquidity if that happens in the off hours. So that's probably the biggest risk, is more of the kind of time of day where things could get a bit hairy. But so maybe that means even that maybe I should close my last euro shorts maybe before the actual vote, because if sterling goes up like we both agree, Europe could see a similar kind of relief in this whole.
they'll go together, I think.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant, Pete. Thanks very much. I guess lots of stuff here, and lots of moving parts, lots of unknowns, lots of nuance. You're going to get every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the shape of an MP telling you bits and bobs before. I've been reading up to Laura Kusenberg, and she said something. She, you know, I quite like her, and she did say there will be a case of all mouth and no trousers for MPs on the actual when they get to the vote time. And obviously, you know that, you mentioned that, you've blogged about that as well, because it's fine to attack policy. It's fine to say there's no way I can possibly support all of this. But when they close the doors and it comes to it, are you going to vote? Are you going to actually put your name down, even though it might threaten your career? You know, so there's that as well into the mix. All in all, it's a dog's dinner, and it's, you know, I think it's probably the riskiest time to trade. One of the riskiest times to trade in anything I've really experienced. Don't let some incompetent MPs. Don't get me wrong. There are some very, very good MPs out there. But I just think the whole thing was a dog's dinner, is a mess, and I hope we'll learn from this. It's an embarrassment. Don't think the fumbling MPs like David Davis don't have this cozy image of a dad's army, right? Because if it falls off a cliff, which it will do, or can do rather, it's going to be catastrophic for Sterling. So bottom line, if it's a no, I'm selling cable, but looking to no more than 2 big figs.
Yeah, to be honest, I might actually just try euro dollar. Like one thing we discussed before, I just feel it's probably, to be honest, if Sterling doesn't just disappear, maybe I don't have my trading plan yet, and I would have been 100% with you, a few weeks ago. Now, because what we discussed and this Article 50 business, I'm less sure. So I wonder whether if cable gets quickly sold, if I'm actually a buyer. But I hate it as well because I'm worried about Corbyn. So it's like, it's literally, I mean, for most retail traders that are maybe not as close to the news as we might be, it's you almost wonder if it's better just to stay out of it and deal with the facts. It's only January 15 on Tuesday. You have the entire year ahead of you. You're not gonna win on Tuesday, but you could lose. That's the way I look at it. If from a risk reward point, the moment you're not quite sure, and it could, like we said, cable, because the result could come out so late in the night, cable could, in theory, I'm not saying it happens, it could drop 600 points. Flash crash type. I'm not calling for another flash crash. I'm just saying that bank liquidity, which I still think was a big driver on the last flash crash, bank liquidity will be reduced that night. You can be certain, right? No bank is going to run 100% risk in their algos at 7 o'clock for that vote, right? That's just self-preservation,
So if they don't do it, why are you doing it? I mean, not you, but as in, why are retail traders doing it? That's a really good point, B. If banks are turning off their liquidity, maybe you could do the same, as a retail trader, for those retail traders who are watching the show.
Yeah, so it's definitely something I try to stress to retail traders time and time again. If volatility increases, your risk should decrease. This has nothing to do with not being, with being worried or scared or whatever. The reality is, if volatility is high, you need less capital to make the same amount of money. But if
Exactly.
you deploy the same amount that you trade on average and you lose a lot more than you usually lose. It's as simple as that. So anyone that does feel he wants to put money down on Tuesday should at least think of not trading the normal trade size, but reduce the trade size at least. So if something goes wrong, at least it goes wrong in a smaller scale than because you know what, and this has nothing to do that I consider myself as the pro and whatever, but I haven't traded sterling in 2 months just because I couldn't be bothered to run after every headline or every tweet that is coming out. And I'm even now not convinced I will be trading sterling on Tuesday. And I think, I understand risk better than maybe retail does. I understand, all the stuff we just talked about. And I still don't feel comfortable to actually really know where it's going. So to me, it's a 50-50. I don't like 50-50s. I don't trade 50-50s because I have no angle, no X. And I don't think maybe like we said, maybe we get one. Maybe there's more written about tomorrow about Article 50. I don't think the EU is coming to rescue of May, because that should now happen probably tomorrow, if they would, which is maybe hard to see, but I think the phone calls are going between Brussels and number 10. Maybe let's bring this in as well. The EU has a track record of last minute adjustments, right? It has happened before.
Right.
It would be the first time that they say for 6 months, no, 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 and last minute they say yes. The one thing that still is a bit complicated in my head is, now we're talking UK and Brussels, but we do know that 27 members of the EU have to actually agree to everything that is in this contract.
Yeah.
And if I look at the German economy right now, already in my view in a technical recession, if I'm Mrs. Merkel and I'm faced with a no-deal Brexit just because a few politicians try to muscle through whatever they try to muscle through, and I'm just gonna lose another God knows how many. Let's say the car industry in Germany is just after the diesel scandal, just gets another knock on the head. So I'd be worried if I'm Mrs. Merkel, to be honest, and that's why I'm a little bit surprised that some of these bigger EU nations that have a lot at stake in a no-deal Brexit, there's somewhere is politics, and at some point it's like country, let me rephrase it. There's the EU, and then there is national government. And I wonder if that creates at some point tension between domestic national government and Brussels, if Barnier and Juncker just try to muscle this through. I still think Brexit would never have happened if Juncker wouldn't be in power anymore, but that's just my view. I think he is a big factor of the UK want to leave Europe. But that's discussion we're going to have before the May elections on EU Parliament. As you know,
another special.
I have a lot of opinions there.
That's fantastic. So I know I'm going to put you to the test here, Bree, but in real simple terms, if it's a no, what are you doing trade wise, or are you going to sit out of it? If it's a yes, what are you going to do?
Now, sometimes I might change my view, shortly beforehand, but I would let you know. Right now, my strategy, as I think right now, is I sit it out. I don't trade the no, because obviously I already believe there's other stuff in the making, so that the vote itself may not actually matter. And then just see the reaction. If I think sterling is getting sold too much for what I expect will follow, I actually will fade the dip. I will fade the dip and buy sterling. But again, only for a reaction.
And if it's a yes?
If a yes, I try to get my hands on sterling or euro or anything. I think the rally I think cable on a yes, cable is going to be 133 very quickly. I honestly think that a lot of negatives is priced in. Let's not forget one thing, right? The whole world is underweight sterling by now. If you talk about the investment community, we talk about the whole, like bondholders, like the big money, they're underweight the UK. I mean, has to be, because the risk is just such that you cannot be on, fully weight in the UK. So, the UK is still a very large economy. So even if we do Brexit, that doesn't mean that UK is suddenly falling off the map, right? Definitely not. So I think very quickly, an ordinary Brexit, let's say we vote yes, we have the 2-year transition period, everything is honky-dory in terms of our exit, that is when people can start to plan, put money back to work. Now, the only reason people withdrew or businesses withdrew is because we don't know. That's the only reason. And that's why it's the worst thing for businesses for the last 2 years that Theresa May and the government has never really openly talked about the plans. So business could never prepare for, okay, if this happens, we do this. If that happens, there's this. So maybe a sort of 2-3 tier type of idea on how Brexit, or what ideas the government has. Obviously, you always have to plan for no deal Brexit. That's just in the nature of the beast. But there's probably a plan A, a plan B, and plan C might be no deal Brexit. But they the card so close to their chest that businesses, the only reaction business could do is actually don't invest because we don't actually know if we need it. And that has hurt the UK economy, no doubt, and confidence, right? And so that's I actually think a big.
I think cable's there. What you're saying is probably cable's more risk reward, more of a buy, even if it's a fade on the no. Yes. If it's a yes, it's a buy. If it's a delay to anything, it's a buy. Apart from the vote and a confidence, so that will be a nasty one. But so I'm geared. I'm actually with you on that. I think I'm more inclined to buy cable, just because of the positioning as well. Underweight and all that stuff. And no.
To be honest, I think the MP, even the Brexiteers probably by now realize that even the country is not necessarily in favor of a no-deal Brexit or a hard Brexit. Let's put it this way: no deal. Let's say a hard Brexit. And so if you put the 48% that voted to remain, and then you probably at least 1/3 of the Brexiteers don't want a hard Brexit. So I think you, as an MP, you have to assume that far more than 50% don't want to have a hard Brexit. So like what you said earlier, and what Koensberg said, at some point you're going to be accountable as an MP, as a politician. The only risk is maybe they don't care. Okay, their career is over maybe for the moment, but because they're not accountable in the real sense, that's the risk. They may just live in cuckoo land. I don't know. Maybe they don't realize what's at stake, or don't. It's like Boris Johnson. All these ideas. Yeah, okay. So let's say if he would be in charge, he gets you a hard Brexit. 2 years later, when everything falls down, he sort of leaves and goes, "Oh, sorry, got that wrong." It's like at least that's politics these days, sadly. But let's see. You know what? If we had the same session a week or 2 weeks ago, I think the outcome of my opinion would have been different. I'm actually just surprising myself a little bit, to be honest, that I'm seeing the more positive side right now. Not in terms of the overall outcome, I don't know. We don't know if Article 50, but one thing you can be sure, if you would see a headline from number 10, Article 50 is delayed 6 months, sterling is going to rally on this. Not just because of, oh, thanks God it's not March. No, because the chance of sorting out those sticking points gives you another 6 months to try and sort something out.
Yeah.
But where I agree with you is the delay of Article 50 does not mean sterling is going to rally indefinitely. There's a fade somewhere in there because the problem isn't solved. But it's not going to be, so probably in Article 50, a delay is not going to be 135, which it could be in a yes. But, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the only thing I think, and this is probably slightly irrational, you know, I was born in Guernsey. Some of my family are Irish, all over the world, basically. So I do have a bit of a mixed bag in my heritage. It is just my irrational sort of I think nobody really thought we would ever leave Europe, and the fact no plans were made because the MPs thought the same for some reason, even though we voted to leave. And still there's this inkling where, you know, if we delay it so long, maybe it will go away.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when we do kick the can down the street, everyone's got brand new oxygen. And then they'll just go, we'll have to make a decision now. Let's just buy cable. So that's the kind of, you know, I got.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah,
all right, mate. Well, look, thank you so much. This is great. So just to sort of galvanise what we're saying trade-wise, if it's a no, we're both thinking cable off, maybe one, maybe two big figs, but it's all about the 3 days after. It's all about what the response is. There's going to be a lot of things coming out. Don't get too greedy. If you get on cable, don't get too greedy. Cut your size. The vol is increased. Cut your size. For me, the best trade would be if it's a yes to be buying cable, because obviously everyone, the whole world's underweight the UK for various asset classes, and no's been largely priced in. Really, everyone's talking about it. If there's a delay, you want to be buying cable. It's probably a fade in that, but you've got to be really patient. That could go some before you start fading it. If you do fade, start small, and watch out for that bad boy vote of no confidence from Corbyn. That could upset everything.
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, the only good thing for Theresa May and the Tories is that you have such a crappy Labour Party right now. If you had a somewhat acceptable leader, or, you know, an electable leader, I think we wouldn't even be here. We probably would already have had a no confidence vote and a shift of power. But, you know, even half the Labour Party probably doesn't want to have Corbyn as a leader. So, you know, I mean, if Corbyn comes in as PM, Mr. Reid, I might actually relocate, and we do our videos on the sunny coast of the Costa del Sol in future. Because I'm not
all I can say is thank goodness for Wi-Fi. Because I still want to do our sessions. I still want to do our show each week.
Yeah, we do. I just do it from the Costa del Sol.
I'm going to get my hanky, put knots in it, and then get the sun cream, and then get burnt like a lobster, just like a Brit.
No, to be honest, that's just, that would really be. I'm actually rather have hard Brexit than Corbyn. You know, and I'm more of a Remainer. So I think hard Brexit is the smaller pain than Corbyn in terms of the economy.
Yeah.
But that's just my, you know, people may disagree with that. But if you read some of the manifestos from Labour Party, no. No.
I can't really. My head's exploding already with Brexit. I can't imagine a Corbyn as a prime minister at the moment. It's just too much. I'll have to have a lie down in a dark room and have a glass, you know, a glass of milk or something. Just like too much.
Exactly.
Well, look, thank you for coming on the show. I hope everyone's enjoyed it. It's been a Brexit special. I promise. B will be wearing his Brexit bow tie and waistcoat. The one he goes when we go out for a pint, in a London pub. That's what he wears. I promise.
Yeah.
And, but no, not the final thing is, I just want to mention, Pete, you do an amazing commentary, and you do it daily. You do tons of work in it. I've been a fan for a while now, and you know, if you want to navigate a lot of macro, if you want to get some really good levels, if you just want to kind of have a good steering of the ship, which can be, you know, you can enter a lot of stormy waters. Beach man, he really is. And Pete, hopefully I've done it a little bit of justice, but I want you to sort of explain a little bit what more you do.
Yeah, thanks very much. Now, what I do is I just sort of plot the majors on the sort of 4-hourly and daily charts, put my view in it, trade recommendations, key levels, as Patrick just said. And I think I just understand this sort of breaking down macro into what I call macro light, which is the tradable part of macro. Because, you know, many people or economists, you know, you can write a lot of stuff, you can have a lot of views, but what I'm trying to do, and more often than not it works, breaking it down to an actual winning trade or a trade. And I think that is probably my speciality of linking the story, you know, sensing the themes and putting them into a trade. And that is what you get. So if anyone is interested, speak to myself or Patrick, and I can give you some more color. Or for those interested, you know, I can always put you on an email list for a 1-week trial and just see for yourself.
That's fantastic, Pete. And again, you know, thanks very much. Your insights are invaluable, and you know, we'll be both blogging on LinkedIn. And certainly, Pete, you've got your macro group, and you know, you don't say it's your group, but it's a group with like-minded individuals who are, you know, serious traders, and just you know, watch that risk. I always say it every week. There are lots of days to trade. Tuesday may not be for you, but that's absolutely fine. I might stay out of it. You know, it's. To
be honest, I you know, the other thing is we do not yet know where sterling is going to be on Tuesday, right?
Exactly.
So for me, there's so many factors. It's not just, oh, I fade the dip, or I do this, or I do that. It's always depending on if cable rallies to 130 between now and Tuesday evening, I'm not going to buy the dip.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then the whole risk reward has gone out of the window, so I will definitely stay out. If sterling drifts into the road, you know, and let's say goes into the road at 127.5 or 126.80, I might actually buy a shallow dip as well. So it's really a lot of what we do, Patrick and I, is as well. It's all about risk reward as well. It's not just about, oh, if this happens, we do this, but the risk reward has to be correct as well. And anywhere between 128.5 and 130 is just no risk reward at all, either side, really.
The only final news, which is probably the least important, is I'm starting my first bar core class, which is on Tuesday. I booked it, so if on Wednesday I've got a crick neck and I can't type properly, you know why. Right? So there you go.
Yeah, sorry, I made some fun of you on LinkedIn, but that's just for the spirit.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, Pete. And see you next week.
See you next week. Have a lovely week.
Take care, mate.
Thank you. Take care.
What's that with? Cheers.
Good
Bye.
night, everyone.